tene ta kasinga kapsula tene uma tanjurwa ta dige ngani mala uma ranjupa ta uma ranjupa to uma tanjurwa ni la rangtong sege sungge ware la tene te rangtong sungbe ge junsen kanri rese na tene ta chuchin kunzup jenwa te kunzup ga ta ngara so sendege jitenge no andala tene kunzup sungge ware kunzup rongne tomba se ta kunzup te ta ripi ta hinje pe kapsala chutam chi rang hinji ngo tomba yimba ta nyamgyo ga tingen zan la tene nyangsu nyo kapsala rang hinge tomba yimba chena tomba nye ta te la kunzup rongne tomba yimba chena rang tong sungge ware ta te oma rongji pa tong oma tanjiro wa ni la ta te jesla uma yentong parela uma yentong sundu te la kare rese na chuni tandam jedemba yengu ne tongba se chuni te yore se na chuni ranghin chi sang jeju yoba nyamsu nyongju yoba tene ta te nelu ga tante yore la tene te la sutong yore se na kunzup chuchin ga tong yore la teacher na chuni yenji tongba te la chuni la chuchin yenji tongba yinbe chen yen tongpa sungge yore la ta te ya rang tongpa te dukja rive se na dukja mare te inchi minchi chu tongji tongni de ten la papa te kal chenpo re sanji jom den de ji jong dami ni ta tene te yendo tongni kyudu ka go ne tongba nye re so ne chu tongji tongni de ten la pap na yore la te tongni de toba te kal chewa re ta ngaran sun ji ten korwan de chunung chulni tene korwa lan chongge yore la tin chulba te pangya yore be sena pangya yore te pangya ye be junsen de kande re sena ngo rang yin ji ma tongba yin be chena te pangya yore ti nelu de toya yore la ti nelu de to par se pala chu umge ripa nam ji ta hin che pala tu som se tene ta ti dain do nyam so long ta tinde na wala tene pe umtawa tena papa te toni de tena papa te kal chempo ta tene pento chempo la tene te tomba tonjung che la norson na tene te tomba tonjung che lan na te chom jin dige yo re be na dige yo mare tene chuni tandam je damba te salwa yi hi che namba tan damba che i to go ba yin be na tene oma yentong batawa te kal chege yo re la te sanji jom den de ji sum be ka sala tene chetang kan kholo parba chögyam kholo rimba som do korwe no ne kan kholo parba ge chötang ji toni de temba kan kholo tama ge tene te toni te la tene sarwa yi hi deor hi bi nimbo sanji ji nimbo de chöni ji long de yu ya ba de salbor temba yin be chen no oma yentong be tawa te kan la tenge yo re se na kan kholo tama la tenge yo re.
So yesterday we talked about the consequentialist Prasangika school of the Middle Way, and the day before we talked about the autonomist or the Sautantrika school. And so these two schools together, the consequentialist and the autonomist, are called the self-empty or the Rangtumpa. And so what is the reason that they are called the self-empty? Well, the reason is that there are all the relative phenomena that appear. And so these are all the appearances of this life, of this world. And so all of these phenomena, whether we examine them with logic and reasoning, they are empty of themselves. They're empty of anything. If we examine them in our meditation, they are empty of a thing. So when we say self-empty, that means that they are empty of any empty of any thingness in themselves, all the phenomena of samsara. And so for that reason, we say that the self-empty school is the school that talks about the all phenomena being empty of any thingness of themselves. And so those two schools are the consequentialist and the autonomist schools. So they are called the self-empty school. And then we have the other empty school. And when we say other empty school, well, what does that mean? Well, the other empty school is when you have the we have the ultimate Dharma nature, the ultimate truth, and that is empty of any thingness that is other, anything that is other. So it is the Dharma nature, the Dharma dhatu is empty of any other things, and so in that way, this is so there is the Dharma nature, and the Dharma nature is empty. But is that just mere emptiness? It isn't. It also has the cause of of Buddhahood. There's something there that we can experience. There's something there that we can practice upon. And so it's not just emptiness. It's emptiness of the other relative phenomena. So the Dharma nature is empty of any relative phenomena. So it is the Dharma nature is empty of the thingness of other phenomena. So that is these other empty. So now we might think to ourselves, okay, that Shentong, that other empty, that's great. So the self-empty must be somehow bad or a terrible view. Well, is it like that? Actually, it's not. We really do have to study the self-empty view. It's very important for us to really establish and internalize that all phenomena are emptiness. The Buddha did teach the 2 types of selflessness. The Buddha did teach the 16 types of emptiness. He taught that all phenomena are emptiness, and so for this reason, really coming to understand and internalize that all phenomena are emptiness is extremely important. It's because it is because of thinking of things that we wander through samsara. We have the confusion that makes us, we have the confused appearances of samsara. Through that we wander in samsara. And so is there a way to give up that confusion? There is a way. And that way, that is why we meditate that all things are empty. And when we practice this, then we can understand and realize this nature as it is. So first, we establish this through logic by listening and contemplating, and then on the basis of that we do our practice, and so through this we can really come to internalize the emptiness that is taught in the middle way. And so this is very important to do. It is very helpful to do. But when we come to understand this emptiness, if we just think that this emptiness is mere blank emptiness, that's a mistake. If we just grasp onto that as mere emptiness, that is not okay. We have to realize that the ultimate nature of the Dharmata, the way things are, has the clear wisdom. So we need to realize that. And so that is why the other empty, the Shentong, is so important. So now when the Buddha taught the 3 different wheels of Dharma, the second wheel of Dharma, the middle wheel of the Dharma, is teaching that everything is emptiness. But then in the last turning of the wheel of the Dharma, he taught that emptiness is actually also clear wisdom. It is the Buddha nature, it is the essence of the Buddha that is present within the Dharma nature. And so, for that reason, when we ask what are the sutras that the Shentong view, the other empty view, is based upon, they are based on the sutras of the third, the final turning of the wheel of Dharma.
Tene ta teacher na sanji jamdin deji ndo ta ho ne tembala kam tembendo nyangin de bendo rabo songyo arela. 다티게 콜로 타메긴 도데 삼지긴나니 살부르송 야바레라 디니 디게 곰바테 자사 샴방금베 디니 티바침보 질라면 땡큐다 다 상주 땡아에 나네 람바 인돌라 살와르테 Tene de rimba yendolam Papa Tomi dan tene loben Arian Deva laso Papa Tomi dan loben ini laso banom ki rem yendo pelne ta tarware la tene kadnder sauna beto tarwe kapsala loben chembo tuchin yumowa kunchin torbo sanje ta jesun taranata kunchin rangjung dorje kato Mahapendata getse jurmi tseon chodo jurmi temba namjal hekin Mahapendata entru tutup namjal dodum jimi tenle wezer tat yentong haji gi lama namjin sen sonare kepar melin terchin yapse choji longchin baso na ta de namji ta tanda tsardu tempare oma yentong betawa de tsardu tempare Uma yentong bezawa de taldo tentang de kandi naware sena kollo barbe berendo sanwa se kan kollo rimba som de korwe nonen kollo barba gna ngutin de kare ten yore sena toni de ten yore tene tas beren sena tinala ya mason wachi me ya mason wachi te se kapne tene tambo mason wachi tene devarki bi nimboti yepariyo mati mepariyo mati ba imbechana kolo parbar berendu sonare tene kate si yoga parela tati ge nguni ti be yapati tenda kariyo aresena nguyi vesal chi chanam tati ge kolo parvani be yapati sanji jamden de ji tembe ge kapsala kamtemben nyangin do lamo pangtingi hyben do la sopa kollo tama la sopa koni zongjo ta te tipa chimbo jila me tenju de zongjo onchu jabu hyben do la tene suwa yin ta tende songyo are la tene tige nandon do tenju ge nondo dewar hibi nimbo o ma yin tong betawa te nguso tene tralio are
And so that is why, as it says below, this is taught, and the Buddha taught this in sutras, such as mentioned below, the sutra that teaches the element, the Mahaparinirvana sutras, and others. So these, this teachings of the other empty middle way is clearly taught. It's taught in detail in the third and final turning of the way of the wheel of Dharma. And then the great Maitreya explained this in his treatise, The Supreme Continuum. That's in Sanskrit, the Mahayana Tantra Shastra. And the rest of his 5 great works. He explained it clearly in that. And then masters such as Asanga and Vasubandhu spread these teachings, and they flourished in this way. And so, as it says here, in Tibet, the great masters of other emptiness include such masters as the great adept Yumuva, the omniscient Dolpo Sangye, Jetsun Taranata, the omniscient Ranjun Dorje, the third Karmapa, Katok Mahapandita, Getse, Gyurme Tsewang Chokdru, Gyurme Tempa Nanjal, Shechen Mahampandita, Wontul Tutop Namgyel, Dodupchen Jigme Tinle Wezer, and here we're missing a comma, Mingling Terdok and his disciples, and Dharma Lord Longchenpa, and so forth. So these are all the names of the other masters who taught the other empty middle way view. And so when they taught this view, well, these are the masters who emphasized the middle way view. And what is the manner in which they taught it? Well, in the middle turning of the wheel, there are some implied teachings in there. So these teachings of Buddha nature are implied in the middle turning the wheel, but they're not explicitly taught. What the middle turning, the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, explicitly teaches is emptiness. And then the other teachings that are implied in there, that are somewhat hidden in there, it's not said that the Buddha nature exists. It's not said that it doesn't exist. It's just sort of hidden in there, and so it's implicit in there as the teaching of the Buddha nature. So this is implied in the teachings of the second wheel of Dharma. So this is the actual practice, the aspect of clarity, that is the Buddha nature, which is implicit within the second wheel. So it's implied, it's not directly said in the second wheel. But this is actually explicitly taught in the sutras of the third turning of the Wheel of Dharma, the sutra that teaches the element, the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the sutra requested by the goddess Sri Mali, and other sutras of the third wheel. So they're taught clearly in these sutras of the third wheel, as well as in treatises such as the Supreme Continuum. So the Supreme Continuum and sutras such as the sutra requested by the goddess Sri Mali and others teach this clearly. And so these are the sutras that actually explain the other empty view.
Tene ta te tabo ngutin da talwa te kandire se na ngeren chirmudu batam dewarhi binhimbo ta sanji dewarhi hekpa se na chitang ta tanda dewa tan dungal namba ni yebe na ne ta ngaran so ge mende pa te dungal re de pa te dewa re tene dewa te top gu ge yore dungal te pang gu ge yore la 니데 대화데 토바동 동할데 뽕알라 단다 나란좀 코르웨네나 데 네요아렐라 디마 대화동 동할 니그나니 망휴 더보데 동할요아레 다데레 대화 토프게 네데 티니 타바동 탐진 쳔베 공봉 산지지 공봉렐라 다디긴 코르웨게 네니 대화 코르와 동할게 네레 대화 산지지 공봉라 hekpa sena dewari hekpa sena tati konga dungal te yuk dewa te top tene dewe ge nela pep to ba yimbe chena dewari hekpa se tati na dewa la pe yo dewari hekpa te sore sena ta sanji haja to ba la so ba depe sanji ta tata we sanji mambo je dewari hekpa re dewari hekpa re la tene kon namba kanga dewari hekpa re dewari hekpa ge junsen te kandi re sena konzo ndro topa kandi sena dungal ge nele dewala songa re sena konzo la ningbo yoare ningbo topsi ge saban rabo je yoare saban te peche yabo je tangne tene ta tanda tene de konga peche yabo je tangne tene de dungal ne dewe ne so leptopa je chunga re la tichana dewari hekpa se ge di nimbo te peche yapuji tangre per na ngaran so meto je yo na meto te tap na meto tombo yapu yo mare saben te yapu yo mare te teni jima meto trapare shar ta ti dewari hek panda pure teni di saben te sol yo are se na ngaran so senchi tongchi le yo are chuni glong de chasan la yo are dewari hibe nimbo saben te yo are la sen saben te sanji la kandre yapa tardo ngaranso la yon te tardo yore senjin tongji la yore te la dewarhi bi nimbo se yo dewarhi bi nimbo te senjin tongji je la kap ndarasam na senjin tongji je la yore senjin tongji je la kadu yore se na ye ne yore nguma ne ngaranso la yore ye den do yuba se tombo ne ngaranso kon namba la tombo ni yore ngaranso la tombo ni yore yoare diedento yuba se ngaranso yoare per na meto ge savente kon nambe ge peje tani meto tap meto che nanju ge meto tap mato bache hyoku na lo nya de du tenen ko saven shushu che mato tel meto che yo mare la teacher na teni dewarhi bi nimbo de ngaranso yoare tatap go yoare la teni te nimbo de kandisi yoare sen ore tata
And so these explanations are taught in the third wheel of the third turning, the wheel of Dharma. These sutras contain unstoppable statements of the definitive meaning, which explain that Buddha nature has been present from the beginning in the continua of sentient beings. And so these are unstoppable statements, irreversible, irrefutable statements. That might be a better word. Hang on, I've got to take a note. Okay, now I'm finished thinking. Yes. These contain the irrefutable statements that there is Buddha nature. And the word for Buddha nature in Sanskrit and in Tibetan is Sugatagarbha or Deurashepa. So Sugatagarbha, Su means sukha or bliss or happiness. And gata means to go, have gone. So we have two things. We have happiness and bliss, and we have suffering. So we've got bliss and suffering. And the one that we want, that we don't want, is the suffering. And the one that we want is the bliss, I hope. So we want to get the bliss we want, and we need to bring ourselves bliss. We need to rid ourselves of suffering. And so right now, we are in, the place we're in is samsara. We're in this place of samsara. And what do we have? Well, most of what we have is the suffering. We don't have very much bliss. We have more suffering. And so we need to attain that suffering. And so we need to attain that bliss. And that bliss that we need to attain is the bliss of the state of Buddhahood, the bliss of the ultimate result. So we need to go from the suffering, this place of suffering and samsara, to the place of bliss that is Buddhahood. So we need to cross over this, and we need to get rid of all our suffering. We need to throw away our suffering. We need to gain the happiness and bliss and come to this place of bliss. And so who is it who has already gone there? Well, it is the Buddha Shakyamuni, and it's all of the other Buddhas of the past and all the Buddhas of the present. They have gone to the bliss, and so they've sugata. So they have gone to the bliss. And so, well, the reason is, well, how is it, so for that reason, how is it that they went from suffering to bliss? Well, they have the essence of this. They have the seed of this. It's present with them. And they have used that seed well. They've done well with it. They've used it right. And so because they have used that seed properly, they have been able to go from these places of suffering to the places of bliss. So they have gone to bliss. They have sugata or deurashek. They have gone to the places of bliss. They have used the essence properly. It's like if we have a flower seed. You know, they've taken the flower seed, they've planted the flower seed, it's grown, and now you've got the beautiful flower. That's like the blissful result of Buddhahood. And so, who is it who has this seed? Well, actually, everyone has this seed. This seed is has been present from the beginning in the continua of all sentient beings. So all sentient beings have this. This is present within the expanse of the Dharma nature. So just as all the Buddhas have had this seed, also all sentient beings have it. We all have the essence of going to bliss. We all have the Buddha nature. And so it is present within our mind streams. So how long have we had it? We've had it from the very beginning. It's always been there. Just as the Buddhas have had it from the very beginning, we have always had it from the very beginning. And so the Buddhas have taken it, they've used it, they've planted that flower seed, and they've grown the flower. And so we just haven't planted. It's like we've stuck that seed in the envelope, labeled it, and put it on the shelf there. It isn't going to grow until you put it in the garden and let it grow. So it's just going to stay in that envelope. And so we haven't used the Buddha nature yet. So we need to plant that seed and use that seed. So how is it that we're going to do that?
Tene tati deorki binhimbo de kandiri tanda tene ngaranso tonge yo mare basena takanderson na tonsom tariu chimbu pe so jite ndog none ta tanda nguma ge sisena tonsom je tongchimbu jite je komde tene ta koshin ge yukje gangola tine tene te chapari yabache inaya te chudiga na 다고 도도 나보체체 다유근놈도 디가디 단다 하고요 말에 제 고진 욕적인 거 동섬지 동침보다 디 디니디 디가나 통카 방가나기 디가나 디니디 통고요 말에라 다디 칼레칼레 카세요나 디니 타파레 통지르바 베테견도 나란선다 있는다 좀빌랭게 사타 타파레 요레라 디 인디 지테비 요디 Tini tanda shogi cha jay mato jay yomarilla. Tikasena tini zombelen chasan zombelen ge janso tan saige dan lain tenzo kanga trapare tongrava. Pe te yendola tini dewarhi bi nimbo tenga tanda tepcha ja yo varella. Ta te mahon pala tikase gure. Tedan tambar temba ta. Jesin shambanggembu ta te sanji jamden de jindo inno ne ten yore.
Excuse me, I have to think another instant. Okay. So what is the Buddha nature like? Well, the Buddha nature is something, it's like, as is described here, similar to the analogy of, and here I need to change the translation a little bit, similar to the analogy of a painting on a huge piece of fabric that depicts the entire billion-fold world realm. So we talk about the whole billion-fold world realm, the universe with all the billions of worlds in it. And we've taken a huge piece of fabric and we've drawn this on this huge piece of fabric. And so we've got this huge fabric that shows the entire universe on it. And then what have we done with it? Well, we've neatly rolled it up, we folded up and everything. And so when you do that, you've got this nice, neat little piece of fabric, and you can't see the painting of the billion-fold world realms on it. It's like the tanka. You roll the tanka up, and you can't see the painting on it. So we folded up this fabric, we can't see anything on it. It's like if you have a map of the world. You've got a map of the world, and you fold it up like this, and you can slip it inside the National Geographic magazine, and you've just got the piece of paper right there, but you can't see anything on it. Then you unfold that map, and you've unfolded it, and you can see, wow, there's the ocean, there are the continents, and everything. That's where the mountains and everything are. You can see it all on the map. And so, in the same way, we have this Buddha nature, but we folded it up and we've tucked it away someplace. And so we have to get that map out. We have to get the Buddha nature out, and we have to open it up. And so that is what is taught in these sutras.
Tene ndo inone temba yendo teta temba tan tambar jetsi shambangem tipa chimbo jilamane chetarasumbata cheprato palde tuichin koloso ngachi jenamne chon salwar temba tar setate ndo yonde sena tanda chetang ndo inone temba rela temba tar do tenchu yonde sena tipa chimbo jilamane nonde samyoware sonha ge jidigen nane pal tuichin kolola soba none ten yore tene senchen tamche yene sanje chirangi teyon chuni ji hila trama yene go manyongwa korwa hisawa tana main zamyon maduje nyangin lende be chu tamche taten ponjur tong tarwa tan jorwa meba de ne senji chuni do ronchi su yuba ta tende yene yeba ta sonare.
So that is how it is described in the sutras, and then in accord with that, it explains in treatises such as the Supreme Continuum by Maitreya. This is just as is clearly explained in Maitreya Nata, Supreme Continuum of the Mahayana. Maitreya Nata is just another name, just another way of saying Maitreya. Maitreya Nata, Supreme Continuum of the Mahayana, and especially in the glorious Kalachakra and other tantras. And so, in terms of the sutras, it's taught in the sutras, and then in the same way it is also taught in treatises such as the Supreme Continuum by Maitreya, and in the tantras of the Vajrayana it is taught in the glorious Kalachakra Tantra and in other tantras. So according to these, all sentient beings have from the very beginning had the nature of being awakened. So from the very beginning all sentient beings have been Buddhas. From the very beginning the character of the Dharma nature has never been sullied by any stains, so that samsara cannot be established as even a name. All nirvanic phenomena are permanent, stable, and unchanging. They do not change in any way. They have been inherently present in the nature of the mind from the very beginning. So from way back when, they have been primordially present.
Tene ta teya shanggenji 제다랑하리기 시대기 유로와 메비 주니도 다 데워히비 힘보데 간리 요아레세나 다 가주 살바 토바레 나란서 상제베가로 토기 요아레 데니 사토베가서 토기 요아레 두바토베가서 토기 요아레 베스는 말이 제따랑 나르기 치대기 단당 후마칸데 예바타도 단다요 텐데 요아레 주로함메베 주니 도 손니 데네 다 단다 tini ye demani ye persona rela tati ndo itawi tena papakas jibo ke tena papakas kandi sin dewarki bi nimbo ti senji tangji ke senji jela yore te ngo tombe ke nambal kandi sin yo yore te yihi salwe ke nambal kandi si yo yore tachi se du tatinde sin yo yobala tini te tatan tenju chimbo jela ma ke nani sam yore tela ya tini te ko dewe ke chdo pe go ke do ne Jilama Zaina, Yorela, Pego, Pego in non Sarhu, Dabote Kandi Yoresena, Tene Ser Saudo son, Pe Yorela, Tene Ser Saudo son Atela, Perna, Ser Dodo, Chembo, Jay, Tene Tate, Mechigitna, you. The Yoni, the Saga Wola, Tate, Titan, Talanda Bosan, Tene Sandabo, Tate, the Serti, Naya Bala. 하마고와제 다 디데나 드니베 메츠게 게니라고 텐데 로 다텐데시네 드니 디캅슬 칸데 용게오레시네 세르 코랑가 ngooti durun rogyo warebisina durun rogyo mare ser koran serra dodora yorela tene lo dong tongcha ndabo lo dong jatra ndabo tende samna ser koranga ngowol njurwa kan yo mare njurwa kan yo mare de ina ya ser korange pain togre besina pain kan tog yo mare keni go la pa somare ta tela meche me ulbo che uni ta ti keni ganala korang khamba thapja che jane tena de na teni te korango la ser chembo de yore de ina korang khamba thapja teni chowa jobo teni tende sine degu tanguni sena tende degu yo mare korang khamba la ser dodo chembo je yore la Tati ser dodo chempo tiki nga yo zo hige yo mare, ubo tiki tina ser yeba yo hako yo mare la. Tini tela me ngenhi jinji le une tadu tela, aka nyenji, me ulwonda nyenji, ne kombe wola ser dodo chempo ti yo are, teni koranga hako yo mare. Te tandan kope kyobo sine dege yo are son. Tandela tsani, ndela te malap na tsani zesa mare son. Teni niji chempo ji ne, ta cherang tende zi tab kyobo si mandu. Cherang ke sasha tigo odana, te si ko na ser dodo chempo ji yo are. Te ya lang ne, teni cherang pe urbo chi goge yo mare. Soa kyobo si goge yo mare se labdu tel. Teni korang ke tikal ni, sa de ko, ser dodo de ni, ne, teni mechubo la choro. Ta pe te yendo, teni ngaranzo senjin tangchi ki jela, dewarki bi nimbo yo are. Nimbo yo ne, lodron, jatra, tongtra, sewa, tungshur, mampun rogo yo are. Yina ya te peche tang togo yo mare la. Ta te sanji jam ten te ji, teni te nyi ne, o jiranzo kankala te yo are dang. Te yo pa te peche tang gugare dang sung te te la, teni ngaranzo ke te gom, nyamsu long, tende zina, o te ngarang li yo are ba song song te nyi togo yo are la, ta te chö nyi te sartong song tun jupi seng nelu la yo pa yinpi chir na, ta te nang yo are.
So what is this Buddha nature like? It is as Maitreyananta says, just as it was before, so is it later, the unchanging nature of Dharma. So, well, what is this Buddha nature? When do we get Buddha nature? Do we get Buddha nature when we become a Buddha? Do we get Buddha nature when we attain the Bodhisattva levels? Do we get this Buddha nature when we become a great master? It's not like that. It's just as it was before, so it is later. So just like it was before we get any states like that, so it's the same later. It's always there. It's been there. It's primordially present. It's always been there from the very beginning. And so this is, in terms of the sutras, this is the view that we talk about in the sutras. We come to understand in the sutras through inference. We see why is it that Buddha nature is present in all sentient beings. What is it like? what is the essence? What is its empty essence like? What is the clear nature of it? What is the wisdom aspect of it like? And so this is taught in the Supreme Continuum by Maitreya. And in Maitreya teaches it there through 9 analogies. And so if you read this, you will see the 9 analogies. They're generally pretty clear, but the easiest of these analogies to understand is the one of the gold. The big hunk of gold. The analogy is that there's this big hunk of gold that someone just throws away. Falls on the ground, falls in a little hole, gets covered by some leaves and some dirt, and the guy goes away. And so then over the time of years, over the course of years, it gets covered up with more dirt and trash and stuff. And there's this big hunk of gold there. We just don't know it's there. And so people not knowing it's there, throw trash on top of it. And so now, has the nature of this gold changed in any way? It hasn't changed in any way. It's still gold. It's still valuable, still useful as gold. But can we actually use it? We can't actually use it. It's there for hundreds and even thousands of years without changing, but does it help anyone? It doesn't, because it's stuck underneath the ground. No one knows that it's there. And so there's this trash heap under which there's this big hunk of gold, and this poor beggar comes along, and he builds himself some ramshackle hovel on top of this, and he's got this terrible ramshackle hovel that he's living this poor, destitute, impoverished life with nothing to eat. Terrible life, and he's got this, and he's sitting there on this trash heap. Underneath there is this huge piece of gold. Now, does the gold say, "Hey, I'm here"? It doesn't say that. And does the beggar know that the gold's there? The beggar doesn't know that it's there. Then someone who has clairvoyance comes along, and he says, "Oh man, that poor guy, right underneath his house, there is this huge piece of gold. This guy could be fabulously wealthy, and instead he's living in this hovel, and he's destitute and has nothing. Oh, the poor guy. I got to tell him. It's not right if I don't tell him that he can just dig and get this." And so he says to him, "Hey, actually, you better believe me on this one. There is this huge piece of gold right under the ground. All you've got to do is dig and find it, and then you won't ever have to be poor. You won't have to live in this hovel ever again." And the guy says, "Oh, hey, maybe he's right." And he digs and he finds, and he gets this piece of gold, this huge hunk of gold, and now he's rich. So it's the same way there with us. There is the Buddha nature that is present within all sentient beings. It's present, but for hundreds or for thousands of years, we haven't really seen it. We haven't been able to use it. We haven't known it's there. And then the Buddha found it. The Buddha has found it, and he said, "Oh man, all these other people have this too. They've got this same treasure." And so if you use it, if you look for it, if you find it, then you can use it, and you can do this too. And so you need to meditate, you need to practice, and then when you got to this point, that's what it is. Now I've got it. And so in this way, we find this nature, the Dharma nature. We find the union of clarity and emptiness. This has been present in the way our mind is from the very beginning. So that is what this teaches.
Tene tate koaga tene deorhi bihimbo de senji tangji ge senji jilla yuya ba tene te ngoni jilla che gupate tate tantando on de sena jiro ko koala tene jipo ko koala tene tengi orela tangaran su sonho doji tipo choju ge mengo la tene ngote nandu tate la ngaran su senji nelu la tane tamal ji hiba neton sungi orela tini teya tate loju ge dong da boje he gana dong rimbo da boje he gana mama tapor boje je gombo pa ta pheparela tini je gombo pe ge chaja chimbu ge menga tenzo nangi orela tini tela loma mambo jam loma jeja gomchang cha tabni gomchi jeja somsumare ta gomchi sarba mambo levge orela Tino Gomchin get so double tela combat mesam se ma comni jobo sin leyoga tene mesam yorel tini tela mingin double nickname double ta the combat mesam se combat some yor tini tela main ta the mesaba le on the tela combat uses tak te okabo yode to some chambala main combat uses gose se ta yorel Tenitela, there's a Kashot. Kasho di orella. Kasho atela, Chögyam bas, Tako Gamchin, Kasho Gamchin, that in the Ores, mainland, the Toiga, Masabatin, Menshigi or Marava, Main Sabatographer, Tinitela, Doji Jabos orella, Tiniti mainland, the top devos in the Dorjal Toiga. Tiniti Dorjal, Combat Dorjal si orel. Combat Dorjal, Tambo, Tene, Tombo. Chulu yenda lai hiyo, teni rinpege taburumbo chinjal tendi chungwarela. Jesu kong pomoto la yore. Tichena sa pomoto singi jik densa je warela. Tena densa jadi pomoto baasi. Ti chisun sento ware. Numa dorjal sege warela. Tati dorjal te tangbo ta kong kadam petala pe. Kadam petala pe dutela chaba chuchi singi sing kepa chenpo je ware. Tela kandri hyunin korwe tsawate kanan tugi yore se kandri hyunin. Korwe tsawate tenri chuningi mone maripala tugi re se sumuril. Ata te kanga thorin potabo kandri ina sabat. Ti jini sacha lama chenpo, sacha bala jedu, sachin kangani bo jedu tela. Korwe tsawate kanan tugi re se kandri hyunin. Korwe tsawate long umala majipala teni chung re se. Long. Long za no maji bala teni chungare o tego kale khabotati hira gogu mandu sambachung teni taborum bo jinjal song je gombo banjal o je gombo bala kowe za wa de kanatu grese o po gihi tamba kowe za wa de tamal ji hiba ngoma hiba la teni chungare ting duga gum teni pe ye chini toba jil chini teni pe yabu chungare teni sum.
And so this is, establishing an understanding that Buddha nature is present in the beings of all sentient beings. And so we need to develop it within our beings. And so in terms of the sutras, we do this through inference. We do this in the post-meditation. Through inference, we analyze this. In terms of the secret mantra Vajrayana, we follow the instructions of Mahamudra and Dzogchen. We look at the nature of the mind. And when we do that, we see the way the ordinary mind is. And so here, if we just sort of explain this with a rather long historical tale, then there was the great master Gampopa. Gampopa gave the instructions on Mahamudra to many different students. And among his students, there were the 800 great meditators. And so these 800 great meditators, they're people who came, they just meditated a lot, and they became the great meditators. And so there were always more and more people coming and getting instructions and becoming great meditators through this. And among these, the main students among these were the three men from Kham. So the three men from Kham, they were three people from eastern Tibet, the area called Kham, and they came to there, and they were called the three men from Kham because a lot of people, you didn't know everyone's name, so you call them by a nickname. So you give everyone nicknames, and so their nickname was the three men from Kham. And then also because not everyone really knew their names, they had lots of they all had their own individual nicknames too. So the first of these was called Old Greyhead. So Old Greyhead, that's the Dusim Khenpo, the first Karmapa. Dusim Khenpo was old. He had gray hair, so they called him Old Greyhead. And then the second of these was Salton Chögyam. And so Chögyam had kind of a little curled lip, so they called him Curled Lip. The Curled Lip Meditator is what they called him. So the curled lip, And then the third of them was Dorgyal. So Dorgyal, his real name was Dorje Jaltsam, and they just sort of combined it. Dorgyal. Now, Dorgyal later went to a place called Pakmo and Pakmo Drup, and he established a great monastic seat there. So later he was given the name Pakmo Drupa. So you may have heard of the name Pakmo Drupa. That is a name that he was given later, but his earlier name was Dorgyal. So Dorgyal is someone who, before he met Gampopa, he went and he studied with masters from many different traditions. One moment. We have to build the suspense as you wait. So he studied with many masters from other traditions before he met Gampopa. And then finally, so first he went to meet some masters, and he met some masters of the Kadampa school, and the wonderful, great master of the Kadampa school. And so he asked this master, "Oh, please, master, will you please explain to me, what is the main thing that samsara comes down to?" And the master said, the root of all samsara is the 12 links of interdependence. The first of these is ignorance. And Dorjiao thought to himself, "Man, that sounds so hard to get to, so far away." And so he went off, and he eventually came to the Sakya master, and he said to the Sakya master was Kunga Nyingpo, and he asked Kunga Nyingpo, "What is the root of samsara?" And Kunga Nyingpo said, the root of the samsara is that the winds have not yet entered the central channel in the body. He said, "Boy, that sounds really difficult. I can't do that." And so then he went to Gampopa, and when he went to Gampopa, he said, "Oh, Master Gampopa, what is the root of samsara?" And Gampopa said, "The root of samsara is that we just haven't recognized the ordinary mind." And Dorjiao said to himself, "Boy, that sounds easy." And he had real realization, and he developed real faith and developed realization from this.
Tene ta teacher na tanda uma yentong ka tawa sena yandra uma rontong ka tawa sena yandra tene ngo tomba ni sena yandra ngo sarwa dewarhi bi nimbo som na yonte ta tenji nimbo te ngaran su semji nelu te ngo tomba yimba tene te rangin ji sarwa yimba te jibo ke tena papa te uma yentong paton uma rontong pa tawa ta tene ta ngo su to ngo te ne gomne tene tigi chuni ge londo chuni tomba ni ne ta chuji yen ji ne ta ta chuji yen yi hi song dun ju ge ne ta to ba te rimji pelwan ju wa yin be cherna tene ngaran so ta te seni ji ta to ngo te ne ti ta to pa che ti to pa chi pa cham ji pheng ge yo re se na to pa chi pa cham ji te cham pheng ge yo ma re ta chi tang ge ya bo re se na ya bo re re te yinaya te dang re se na ti dang ge yo ma re la tini tel khari go ge yo re se na ti ta to gam ne tini nyam su nyon ne kap ka la ya bo chong na yo gam kap ka la nyam nyon da bo te cham ma jung na yo gam ne gam na tini remji to pa kon ni kon de per war jo yin be cherna ta ta dang ran so ji pa ke te na pa pe ge uma Thrangu wa ta yen tong pe ta wa te ta tene ngansam ji nyam su nyon choje chimbo tong zoba chimbo ngote ni ti nyam do tenki de leji in becherna ngaran so songho doji ti bichu la tu sam karit nang ge yore sena tu sam te tanda tu sam te tanda ndoi tan ta tan te na phabi yore la ti tan ni ichi yapo je je ni gombe nyonso lo ka so la teni songho doji ti bichu je zo nya ge nyam ne se ge yore la ti tan to gom na teni ndo tang ho ni te gomba yerme ndabo che ge sal ni che la teni te sal che la teni te genji la pelwar se ba yin bichna ta ti tu sam te na papa te pe ngarazo kalchembo la kalchembo imba chamda yom mazi teni ngarazo gom jam kin so la inchi minchi tuba gogi yore.
So whether we call it the view of the Shentong, the other empty, whether we call it the self-empty, whether we call it the empty essence, whether we call it the clear Buddha nature, whether we call it the essence of the mind, it is all just this essence of the mind. It is the empty, it is the essence that is empty, but it is naturally clear. So when we establish this through inference, this is the view of the other empty and of the self-empty. And when we practice this, when we look at the essence itself and we experience it and meditate upon it, then we see the way the Dharma nature is. We see that the Dharma expanse and the wisdom are inseparable, and gradually we increase this. So we recognize this, we're pointed it out, we recognize it, we see that we realize it. And so when we have that realization, is this realization of the nature of the mind, does it help? Well, realization in itself actually doesn't help that much. Is it good? Well, of course it is good. But is it enough? It is not enough. So in addition to in addition to that, we also need to meditate. We need to develop the experience of it. We need to meditate well on it. And so as we meditate upon it, sometimes we'll have some sort of a feeling and an experience, and we can meditate upon that. Sometimes we don't have much of a feeling, an experience, but we should meditate upon it anyways. And if we meditate in this way, then we will gradually be able to develop and increase our meditation. So when we use the inference, we study and we come to understand the views of the consequentialist and the other empty schools. And when we actually look at it directly, we use the instructions on Mahamudra and Dzogchen to look directly at the nature of the mind. And we do these together, so they both are resting on the same thing. So when we do study in the context of the secret mantra Vajrayana, what is it that we study? We primarily study the view of the sutras. We come to comprehend and internalize the view of the sutras. And then when we have real faith, real belief and confidence in that, then we do meditation and practice. And we do the secret mantra Vajrayana practices of the creation phase and of the completion phase. And so in this way, the views, the sutra and the tantra help each other. They work each other. As one grows clearer, the other grows clearer. So as one grows stronger, the other grows stronger, and they both grow stronger together. And so that is why it is so important to study and really establish our view. Not only is it important to do this, it is something that all meditators must do.
Tene tate ya kasin tuana kinjege pe tuaya pojinani tene te ngarang ji sondabu tate kulmandabu chongsonga tene te pe tenkundabu chene yapu chongsonga te terinji hyona samsong karere sena kasin tuate hirap samje noa jebrho senki titen kand nawarela hirap samje noa jebrho se hirap samte pe kalchegre hirap te ganjum ki hirap te kalchegre la tini tela sanjum ki hirap te pe kalchembo yo titen tuzum ki hirap te kalchembo yo re te kalchembo yo pala tini hirap sumga jebrho son manam japarela tini te ya lunri tupi mihi drible tol se ta ngaran so nguni lam te nyans lende yore chu dunde yore tini te lam nyams lende yore te ina long countries in nyans lengu chu countries in the drugu hako yo marela te countries se na tang huma tini sanji jam den de lam drup lam nyams long ne tini kong nyam nyong den song yaba Deji so tene kepa tong tuto chenpo namji lam drup lam nyam so long ni kong nambe ke nyam nyong ke tene tene song kyo pe ke tene tenzo la tene tu pa si gure tene ti tu na tene te yang long se du sanji jam den de chi ka tang tene ten kyu namji tsai te yapo tu gure te tu ne ta ti song kyo ando te yapo re samba si gure we se na mare la tene rikpa gogrela rikpa ti long rek se du rikpa gogrela rikpa ti ten ti junsen kandi rindo yapo ngote ne mato ya ta ti sanji ki song yo pare te re se te yembe junsen kandi se na sanji ki song yo re senken rabo te yembe junsen kandi re se na tuto ti ki song yo re senken rabo maimba te tuto ti ki song gupi junsen kandi yemba ti yapo ngote na ne rikpa tenzo ten na tene rikpa petaendo london ripani de tu de tela tene ngarang ngar mihiba de hine o ta te tende ing duga somne tene mihiba dribali tro mihiba te ta tambo dribati kap de banda go ji yore la te par saliga tene kanga trapare yapu hiba ji te tubi hira 다 디다인도 가리고 그래서나 되네 섬중고 그래라 다 디게 롱동 릭파니 보텔라 나랑 깝깔라타나 하고 그래 깝깔라타나 하고 말이라 되니 텔 맹어 인데 리단스 모टे 생게 맹어 제게 고네 덴데 리단스 데키 야포 제자 잡네 되니 맹어 섬베 맹어 데땡 맹어 데땡 근데 맹어 텔 송로만 보타네 데텐데 임비준신 칸디린도 데텐데신 칸디린도 송로 야포 땅 양니 양도 송로 땅나 맹어 섬베 태섬 문화 좀다 당보 롱동 리발라테나 태섬 야포지 고 깝깔라 야포 마고 태섬제 다 텐데 용거레데 디게 태섬데 나랑 그 섬비 히랍 그거는 때나 팠나 되니 태섬 그 몸바디 좀 그래 되니 다티 투바동 섬바니 보디시나 다 텐던 럽차리베시나 때때 지텐던 럽요 말에 되니 샤리 살보지 정요 말이라 다 텔 카리 구글에서는 검잡 구글에 되니 디 검종 gom japne ta tangbo tupasi tini sombasi ngehi ten tati sombasin kiti gomba revisi na gomba mare tini ngehi ne ripa ki yapoji topa la kogi war tini gomjung we jine lu chigin sasi tini gomne tati kanti rindu yapo gom japne tini gomba ki kapsula gomjung we jine lu chigin sal herab samje noa jepar hyo se tini nelu di salbo tong du tini herab samde jegre la herab samde jeuna tini saja jembo te togre so
Okay. There was a question yesterday that actually was a really wonderful question, and it reminded me of some things that I forgot to say. It's given me some encouragement to say something more today. So this is a great, it reminded me of this. And so what was the question? Well, the question was about the verse from Rangjung Dorje's aspiration for Mahamudra. May the light of the three wisdoms, or the light of the three full knowings, the three prajna is here. It's not yeshe, it's prajna. May the light of the three prajnas, the three full knowings increase. And so here it's talking, this is a really wonderful question because it's important that we really increase the light of all three of these types of this. It's important for us to have the full knowing that's born of meditation. It's important for us to have the full knowing that's born of contemplation, and it's important for us to also have the full knowing born of listening. All three of these are important, and so this is the wish that the light, the illumination of all three of these full knowings increase. And so the prayer reads, so the first line of the prayer, may the full knowing born of listening destroy the darkness of not knowing. And so first we have to study study scripture and may the light of the scripture and reasoning destroy the darkness of unknowing. And so we need to practice. We need to know what it is to practice. We have a path that we want to practice. We have a result we want to come to, but we don't know how to practice the Dharma. We don't know how to follow the path. So how do we do it? What do? We don't know. Well, in the past, the Buddha followed that path. He completed that path. He accomplished the Dharma. And then he taught how to do it. And then there were the great masters of the path who followed the path. They accomplished the Dharma. And then they wrote down how to do it. And so we can listen to these teachings. We can read these teachings. But is just listening to these teachings and read. And so we have the words, the scriptures here, the scriptures of the words of the Buddha and the treatises written by the great masters. And so we need to listen to them. And then when we listen to or read these scriptures, is it enough to say, hey, that's great, that's wonderful? Is that just enough? That's not. We need to use our logic. We need to use reasoning for this. We need to really sort of understand what the reason is. Because it's not like we can just say, hey, the Buddha said that, that's great, that's right. That great master said that, that's perfect, that's wonderful, that scholar said that, that makes a lot of sense. You can't do that. You've got to say, what are the reasons? We have to recognize what the reasons why that great master said that. And then so we use our reasoning to do that. And so through the scripture and reasoning, we are able to dispel all the obscurations of not knowing. We destroy all these obscurations of not knowing. And so first we do this. We do the listening through the scripture and realization. And then once we have that, we need to develop the full knowing born of contemplation. So sometimes we get to this point, well, this is great, we understand this is great, but now what do I do? How do I proceed now? So there are the instructions that have been given. So we contemplate the instructions. By contemplating the instructions destroys the darkness of doubt, the prayer says. Contemplating the instructions destroys the darkness of doubt. So this is the instruction. Then there's the explanation of the instruction, and it clearly tells what the path is through that instruction. We follow that, we say, that's what it is, this is how we do. And through doing this, we can destroy all the darkness of doubt. At first we have doubt, we're not quite sure what it is, but we follow the instructions, we think about them, and then we can destroy that darkness of doubt. And so we've had this listening and this contemplation. Now, does this actually do anything with it? Are we done once we've done all this? We aren't done yet. We haven't finished. We've got to keep going. So we have to develop the meditation. We have to do our meditation. And through the light of meditation illuminates the nature as it is. So the light of meditation illuminates the nature just as it is. So first we listen and we contemplate, we recognize the nature as it is, and then we meditate upon that. So is it enough to just can we do this without listening and studying? We can't. We have to have that certainty. Then once we have that, we can develop the full knowing born of meditation, and that the full knowing that illuminates the nature just as it is. And so in this way, we make this aspiration that these three types of full knowing that the light of these three types of full knowing may spread everywhere. And so in this way, through doing this, may we then be able to realize the Mahamudra. And so again here, full knowing, when I say full knowing, I mean what is often translated with the Sanskrit term prajna, which is sometimes translated as wisdom, sometimes it's translated other things, but just to be clear, here we're talking about the full knowing, or actually you could just say intelligence.
Tene ta te tardo tanda uma yentong rongtong ke tenla papege chuni ke nelu ta tene ngaranzu chaja chimbo gambe semni ke nelu ni de irme banda borela ta tene chutin te zam jona ta kasini nima khakil gom cha jajuma ju tene tene gom je japna ra chi so.
And so that discusses how the view that we come to really understand and internalize through the self-empty and the other-empty, and the nature of the mind that we see through the Mahamudra and Dzogchen are indivisible. And so that's enough for today. And as you have already guessed, because of Lobsang, he's given it away. We're going to do a few minutes of meditation. Sit